you would have heard the lovely little Zoom lady tell you that I'm recording. I'm going to share some slides with you in a moment. Please feel free to put your camera on if you would like to. I love seeing your faces, but as we're recording, I can understand if you don't want to. You can open your mic at any time and ask a question. I'm glad to see a lot of you have warmed up your chat fingers. I'm going to start sharing some slides with you now. So if I can find my share, it's decided to move. That's really weird. I have, there it is, share screen. That's so bizarre. For some reason, my brain switched off and I couldn't see the share screen Zoom. I've been doing Zooms for 3 years and suddenly my brain just switched out. It's like when you're driving a car doing this, your brain's got to go in lots of different places. All right, so you should all be seeing my slides now. If at any time you can't see the slides or you can't hear anything, please make sure you open up your mic and say, Barbara, we can't see it, or I can't hear you, just in case. Or you can pop something in the chat. I'm going to have the chat open all the time, and don't feel like you can't use it. Talk amongst yourselves, ask questions. I'm more than happy for you to use the chat as much as you like. I'll keep moving through the presentation and coming back to look at the chat quite regularly to see if there's any questions that have popped up in there. So if I do go past something, I will go back to pick up on any questions you might have had about the slides. So what's really important for me when I'm delivering training like this to you is to obviously acknowledge the country that we're sitting on. Now, most of you are in Larrakia country. I'm in Aranda country and I'm sitting on Aranda land here today. And I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this country and the traditional owners past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that even though we are meeting digitally and in the digital world, that we're also meeting on country. So most of you probably know me or have been involved in training with me before or connected with me in some way. So just to give you a little bit of background on who I am, I was actually trained and mentored by a man by the name of Dr. John Hinwood. This is him here, and this is his wife, Dr. Judy Hinwood. And I studied with him at the Stress Management Institute and was mentored by him for many years, also worked for him and his company. And he developed mesothelioma. He was given not a very good prognosis, and he knew that he was probably going to die and made preparation in terms of what he was going to do with this incredible wealth of knowledge and information. And he wanted to hand over the responsibility to me as a general manager, and it was a daunting task, and certainly his wife Judy wasn't able to do it. So we started meetings, and certainly after he passed away, we went into meetings to try and go, how are we going to keep this beautiful knowledge alive, this lifetime of work? And this person who I was working with, who had known Dr. John for as long as I had and valued him as much as I did, we both entered into conversations. And just out of somewhere, we both said, what if we both took this on? So this man here is my business partner, and together we formed a new company called the Hinwood Institute in honor of Dr. John Hinwood and his legacy. And so we consolidated. It's basically 3 people in a business partnership. One of them, unfortunately, is deceased, but we've consolidated all of our knowledge and part of it I'm bringing to you today, some of the wisdom that I've learned from Dr. John and from Michael. Now, here's something you might find interesting. My business partner, we've been in business for well over 12 months now. I've never physically met him. How's that? So while I haven't physically met you, I feel like I know you because I'm doing it online as much as I am with my business partner. So fun fact. What we're going to cover today, there's a lot we're going to cover today. We're going to look at what defines a winning situation. When we're going into these conversations with people and we really want to influence them, what are the fundamental ingredients of a winning conversation? We're going to look at what are the non-verbal ways that we communicate. There's quite a few different ways, non-verbal ways that we communicate. Questioning is incredibly important, an incredibly powerful tool when you want to influence people. Motivational interviewing. Be interesting to see how many of you know about that and what experiences you've had with that. We're going to unpack that a little bit. We're going to look at communication personality styles, because there's some challenging personalities out there sometimes. We're going to look at learning styles, how to communicate with stakeholders. Sometimes the people that hold all the power can be the most difficult ones to communicate with and create influence. Angela's asked, can I please ask you for the PowerPoints? I find this so important. Definitely, Angela, I'm more than happy to send you my slides. I will also be sending you the recording. So more than happy to share that information with you after the webinar. We're also going to look, I'm going to teach you some language tricks. It's all very well learning the theory, but you've got to remember it in the moment sometimes. So I'm going to teach you some tricks that I've learned that have really, really helped me and easy to remember in the moment. I would also love to hear from you. If you want to put it in the chat, I'd love to know what you want to get out of today. If you can share that with me in the chat, I'm going to keep moving through. If you can, just pop in the chat what you would like to get out of from today. Angela's going, everything, I want it all. I'm seeing all your little comments in the chat. So yeah, Angela, I can send you, if anybody does want a certificate of participation outlining everything that's covered, more than happy to, you don't need to apologize, that's all good. If everybody wants certificates of participation, I'm more than happy to create those for you, and I can send you the slides and I can send you the recording. So, yep, no problem. In fact, if you've got, sometimes when I do training, maybe not with this one, but sometimes with the training, I have workbooks, and the workbooks often qualify. You can talk to an educator at a vet institute about recognition of prior learning. Sometimes this content can actually contribute as evidence of competency in some units of study. So, but because we haven't got a workbook with this one, it's not as easy to provide evidence. What else do you guys want to get out? Love to hear in the chat what you'd like to get out of the training today. Anybody else wants to pop in the chat, or if you want to open your mic, I'm more than happy for you to open up your mic and share what you would like to get out of today. All right. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on, but keep your fingers going in the chat. Ashish, are you going to say, did you want to open up your mic? Are you going to share something with us? I can't hear you. Can anyone, no one else can hear him either? No, the mic's not working. Oh, I heard a crackle.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, yes. No, likewise, actually, I was thinking to get the certificate for the participation. And yes, slides would be great.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the tangible things. What I would love to know, Ashish, maybe you can answer this for me. What would you like to learn? What attracted you to coming to the training today?
Well, one of my colleagues shared your link with me, and yes, I have moved to Alice Springs recently from Sydney, and I'm working as a communications officer.
Oh, fantastic.
At an organization here in Alice Springs, and yes, I find it intriguing, and I think it, there is always a room to improve your communication skills and learn. So yes, and all these headlines just intrigued me, and I was like, I'm going to take out some time. I'm at work at the moment, and yes, I took some time to attend this webinar. Yes.
Awesome. Congratulations for investing in yourself. Obviously, you're giving up quite a bit of your time to come and join us. So yes. Thank you for investing in your time. Anyone else want to share something you want to get out of today? Thank you, Ashish.
Yes, it's 5 o'clock in the morning here, but I got up to follow this webinar, so I would be glad to learn a lot.
Angela, I know what that's like when because we're in the Southern Hemisphere. We're always having to join in at midnight and different times to train. Whereabouts are you, Angela?
I'm in Europe, in Belgium.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I know you've probably got bed hair and a cup of coffee. So it's a great way to start the day. Yeah, you'll feel inspired and motivated at the end. So thank you for joining us. What is it that you hope to gain from the training today, Angela?
I find communication one of the most important things, but it's maybe one of the most difficult things.
That is so true.
Yeah, so I like to learn as much as possible.
Great, lovely. Thank you for sharing. And I would love to hear your experiences, your tips, your tricks. Communication is one of those things that we're always learning. And especially for people like Ashish that's come into a new community where there's different lingo, there's different jargon, isn't there, Ashish? There's in Central Australia, we use a lot of acronyms. Acronyms are a new word that is created, taking the first letter of lots of words, and then a new word is created. It's like a whole other language, isn't it?
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. So it's about learning how to, and this is what we're going to talk about today, is getting to know the audience that you're communicating with and the words that they like to use and how you communicate on their level. It's something we always develop over time. Can I tell you, I'm also an accredited mediator and I do workplace mediations. And one of the most common conflicts is around communication, and where people disagree about what is good communication or how they like to be communicated with each other. So when there is tensions, it quite often stems from that. So we're going to explore a bit of that today as well. One of the things that we found at the Hinwood Institute is that no issue stands alone. They all impact upon each other and they all feed into each other. And what we've found is there's probably 6 key pillars of learning that you need in order to do well in your career and in your work and in your personal life as well. And so if one falls down, then the other one falls down. If you're feeling really stressed, it's difficult to communicate, isn't it? When you're really, really stressed at work or at home, it's harder to be able to be patient and thoughtful and listen and communicate. In fact, research even shows that when people get to burnout stage, they can't absorb information, they can't read. So they all impact on each other. And obviously one of the key pillars in this whole holistic approach to strong leadership is communication, is doing that really well. It's all of these things are a constant learning that you require. You never peak in your learning. It's always evolving. It's always changing, especially if you're changing environments. Rose has said, learning the different communication styles to adapt to different personalities in an open office situation. What a perfect storm, Rose. An open office is always an interesting one. There's always someone that's too loud or has annoying conversations or interrupts you. So I sympathize. I know what they're a challenging environment to work in, definitely. What we see around communication is when things are problematic, this is typically how people feel. And you might resonate with one of these. So if your communication skills are lacking or you're finding it difficult to communicate with certain people or you're feeling challenged, then this is how it can lead you to feeling. You can feel overwhelmed in what's happening at work and not sure how to communicate that, how to say no, how to push back. You might find that you're overworked. And if we're wanting to create influence and if we're wanting to negotiate, you want to be able to communicate with people what your wants and needs are in a way that's going to work for you. And that's where you might want to create influence, for example, is setting some parameters for how you want to work. And if you don't, then you're going to feel overwhelmed and overworked and over this, which is the emotional roller coaster. It's like, I'm just sick of this. I can't work like this anymore. And if you find yourself in that environment, what that can lead to is that if you're not communicating well, if you can't express your wants and needs, if you can't negotiate, if you can't get your message across, if you're not reaching your target audience in business, you can feel like a fraud. You can start to self-doubt yourself. Am I in the right place? Am I in the right job? Am I in the right industry? Am I meant to be here? It can really lead to you doubting your own capabilities. And you can also feel negligent. And of course, you can feel off course, like, am I on the right path here? Because things are just not working. We don't want you to feel like that. No one wants to feel like that. And if we can sharpen those communication skills, and if you can just shift your technique and adapt and find different ways to operate in different environments, then naturally you're going to feel better. What will happen is that you're going to feel more valued. People are going to, if they can understand you, if you can communicate your message clearly, they're really going to value you. They're going to value what you say, the information you share, the advice you have. You'll be able to act with precision. You'll have the solutions for how you communicate, the right tool for the right job. And you will be motivated and inspired. When things start working, when people start to get you and understand you, it is so motivating, isn't it? We've got, yes, they get me, they get it. And you can be more strategic in the choices that you make, how you're going to communicate, what you're going to communicate, your methods, what tracks well. And you will become a trailblazer. People will start to seek you out because you understand and they understand you. And of course, that's going to lead to you feeling more certain and more confident in the work that you're doing. But just remember, it's a constant process of learning. You'll never become perfect. It is always trial and error. You will make mistakes. You will get it wrong. You may offend people. You may trip over your words. All sorts of things happen. Don't run away from those mistakes. See those as an opportunity to learn. Angela has said safety, psychological safety is also important. That is something I am so interested in right now, Angela. It's something I'm really, really passionate about, is about creating a safe space for people to be able to communicate, and also to create what's called safe conflict, where people can object to an idea or raise issue with something without fear, and creating an environment that's healthy to do that. It's something I'm really, really interested in at the moment. So
no, but this is a problem worldwide right now, because the age, people are, this is the biggest problem now in healthcare.
In healthcare?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is becoming the biggest problem now.
Yes. And I wonder why that is, Angela. Do you think it's because of COVID? Do you think that's what's triggered it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Because a lot of upheaval, a lot of change, probably a lot of opinion about what the right course of action is.
No, also the burnouts. I think burnout is a great problem because of the not having a safety psychological.
Yes, that's right. And so there's two elements to psychological safety. So being able to be safe to speak, but also the mental health as well, isn't it, Angela? And the stress, yes, and the resilience and that element of psychological safety and well-being and care, which is why in the pillars we say well-being is one of those fundamental ingredients as well, because it is about burnout, is about enough sleep, it's about work overload, being hydrated, as well as physical risk. Yeah, they all impact on each other, definitely. Thank you. That's a really good point. So what I want to know from all of you now, this is where, again, love you to put in the chat, and I would love for you to open up your mics. Who are the people you need to influence? Does anyone want to share? What kind of people do you need to influence around you?
Well, I'm happy to go ahead with this question.
Yes, thank you, Ashish.
Yes, I think, just what Angela has raised, I think environments has changed because of COVID. Every individuals have got so much responsibilities on their table now, and we are going through lack of staff shortages in every organization for that matter. And I think over there, communications officers or communications people play a very key strategic part in terms of how you can influence your workforce. And conflict is something that I have observed in my career so far that arises very quickly in any organization for that matter, that people get burnout and they stop valuing each other. And I think it is very important to observe human behavior and observe what is happening around. And how, for me, why I am here is I have stepped into a new role and I want to give my best to my organization, how as a communications officer and as a responsible person on the team, how I can effectively, create an environment of collaboration, safe conflicts, where people are confident to put their prerogatives and point of view on the table, and understanding each other. And I think, as you have mentioned, you have been a mediator from a while, and that's where a role of a mediator comes in terms of, people are like, okay, because I have been into managerial positions as well, where I've seen staff conflicts, and staffs are like, oh, he's saying this, he's saying that, and they don't want to see each other. That's where mediator comes and gives them an opportunity to understand the viewpoint of each other. So to create a better understanding, hence I am here today to attend this.
Yeah, so creating influence, obviously, Ashish, it's your personal sphere of influence, but obviously there's a greater one as well. There's an organizational one as well. So I don't know who it is, but they come up as boardroom, to be yourself, and it can be influencing yourself and your employees. That's an interesting one, in having the motivation to influence yourself to make the right choices. I think that's where you're coming from, but definitely employees. Yeah, and the kind of notes I've got here, it can be clients, it can be contractors, it can be colleagues, it can be your staff, it can be your children, it can be your grandparents or your parents. There's a whole range of different people in our world around us that we want to influence. And so my next question for you, and something, again, you can open your mics or put it in the chat, but what is it that you want to influence? Really think about that for a moment. Do you want to influence their behavior? Do you want to influence their opinion? Do you want to influence the way they work? Do you want to sell them something? Ashish, what do you want to influence?
I want to influence myself.
You want to influence yourself, yeah?
Yes, I want to influence myself, how I can be a person who can understand variety of behaviors and play. And over there, I want to play, influence my emotional intelligence, my compassion. That is something I want to influence, and how I can best translate, make my message across and have a better understanding of people.
Yeah. What's interesting, Ashish, is we often go into conversations with an intent to shift somebody, to get them to change, right? Angela said, for example, their thinking and behavior then that's pretty common, particularly in change management and things like that, when environments are changing, new rules, making your staff do the work that you want them to do in a way that you want to do it. It is often, behavior. It can also be influencing people's emotions. It can be influencing their sense of safety. It can be selling them something, selling an idea, selling a product, selling a service. You want their buy-in to that. You want partnerships and people to come on board with things. So there can be what's really important is to know what intent you have. One of the things that I'm not going to cover today, because we're looking at this more from a professional context, but one of the tools that I use in some of my training is what's called the Behavior Barometer. And I think Ashish and some of the boardroom group as well, if you're wanting to influence yourself, there's a great tool where you can look at, if I want to, what is it that I'm not happy with in myself and I want to change that, and the tool basically shows you how to put your focus and attention somewhere else so that you can shift your own behavior, but also influence the behavior of others. And it's a great, it's also a great spiritual religious philosophy as well. So I've practiced Buddhism, and it's a big thing in Buddhism is in that if you want to change the behavior in other people first, you have to change your own behavior. And certainly I think it's a bit scientific as well in terms of how that works. And I think the other thing that's really important is why. So we've talked about who, we've talked about what, but what's the why? Why? Why do you want to influence people? Do you want people to agree with you? Do you want do you want to win an argument or a court case? Do you need to sell them something? Do you want them to join in on something? Hey, come on, everybody, come and join in. Come and join the party. Or do you want them to step out, back down, look, just quieten down, let's calm down a little bit? Like, what is it, why do you want people to be influenced by you? Does anyone else have any thoughts or opinions about that in terms of why do we want to influence people? I've given you a few suggestions. It's a very philosophical question. Maybe one to think about as we go through this training. Maybe think about what it is that you want to influence and why. And certainly when we go into mediations, when I'm coaching people to prepare to go into the mediation, that's often the stuff that I'm helping them get clear on. So you want to be prepared about what the outcome is before you go into a conversation where you're wanting to create some influence. So we're going to break it down even. Rosa said to shift and change someone's point of view without coming across as disrespectful of their opinions, decisions, and to keep to policy regulations. Yes, Rose, that's very succinct. I love how you've communicated that. And I love that you've referenced respect in there, because again, in mediation, when I do mediations, it's always communication that comes up as a key issue, but respect. And quite often people will say to me, I just want to be respected. Now, the interesting thing is that my interpretation of respect can be different to your interpretation of respect. So, and that's what can often come into conflict. So it's understanding the person and how they interpret what is respectful. And we know that too in terms of cross-cultural situations where we can do something that is quite normal to us, but in another culture, it can be really, really disrespectful. So it is one of those things that is often misinterpreted and comes into conflict. So I'm glad you mentioned that one, Rose. So it's an important one. And the moment someone feels disrespected, it's hard to come back from that. So what we're going to do now is, again, just a bit of a mindfulness approach to looking at what it is that we're actually trying to achieve when we go into conversation. So if we're going into a negotiation or we're going into some kind of conversation, what are the different outcomes that can occur and which one should we be aiming for? Now, the most obvious one that everyone talks about, and they love saying, it's a win-win situation. I win, you win, we're all happy, yay! But it doesn't always happen like that. And sometimes it shouldn't happen like that. So, for example, it's rare in a court case where everybody leaves happy and everyone's a winner. Doesn't happen, does it? So we've got to look at what the reality is in terms of that situation and what we're likely to experience. Now, obviously, this is where you can start writing some notes if you want to. A win-win situation is where it's mutually beneficial. That's where both parties are happy, both people are satisfied, and the key word here is happy. Everyone's cooperating, it's all joy and roses and sunshine, and everyone feels good. Everyone feels good. That's nirvana. What we can sometimes see is that we have situations where one person is going to win and another person is going to lose. And one person might be very aggressive in that winning situation, to win in that situation. And they will use all their power and their position to get what they want. And in some situations, that is what is needed. So if I use a court case situation, you can imagine people will go hard to get a win in that situation. It could be a politician, it could be a police officer, it could be someone who is going to use all their force and all their might to dominate over you for whatever reason. And basically the approach in that is, I'm going to get what I want and make you get what you get. I'm taking control here. There's not necessarily any cooperation or negotiation in that situation. It's almost a fight. It may not be physical, but it's a fight to the end. And there can only be one winner, basically. Then there's a situation where, okay, I'm going to lose. I'm going to back down and let you win. Now, sometimes where this can be detrimental is where I'm programmed like that, where I'm, oh no, I don't want to cause a fight, don't want to make any fuss. I'll just let you take control. We have to be careful that we don't resort to that and that we set low standards in that situation. We may find that we bury our feelings, we don't speak up, we don't assert ourselves, we're not able to have opinion. And what happens if we do that too often is that inevitably manifests in other places. If we continually say, it's okay, won't make a fuss, that can result in us feeling resentful, feeling stressed. It can cause problems and it can cause tensions. There are, however, situations where it's better to let the other person save face. It's better to let them feel like they've won in this situation. So I'm sure you can think of situations where it's not worth the battle. I'll just let them win. I'll let them do whatever it is that they want to do. You know, maybe it's a toddler that's resisting putting on their shoes, or, you know, whatever it is. It's like, okay, you win, fine, get a prickle in your foot, see if I care. I'm not going to fight this battle with you. There are situations where it's just easier to let the other person win in those situations. Okay, so we have, what's the next one? Oh, this is like, I always think of this as the deer locking horns. You know, no one is going to back down. Two people are fighting, and if I can't win, then neither are you. So this is where two people are very stubborn. Typically there's two egos, and neither person is going to back down. And what can happen in that situation, if you see that in a workplace, is that it can become vindictive. And yeah, you get people saying, if I can't win, then neither can you. You know, if you're not going to let me win, then I'm not going to let you win. It's rare that you would want this as an outcome. I can't really think of situations where you would stick your ground like this, unless it is where you've constantly been compromised and constantly backed down for somebody, and you said, this time I'm not backing down. But yeah, I can't think of where this is a useful situation. It may just be, I don't even know if I'd say it's an agree to disagree. It's just not locking horns. There is sometimes I win the end. That is, again, in those probably a court case is a good example again, where someone has to win. You win, and whatever it takes, someone has to have the upper hand and win in this situation. So yeah, court case is a great example of where that might happen in terms of, I don't know, who's getting custody, who's getting a particular outcome of money, who's going to own the business or a property. There has to be somebody that wins. And there will be a lawyer or someone who is fighting to the end and win whatever it takes. It can also be if you're fighting for the cause or the rights of somebody. So you could be really, I don't know, fighting the council around something or standing up for something that you believe in because it's really, really important, and you won't give in because there's so much at stake, and you'll do whatever it takes to win. So, and you will fight till the end. I win, the end, basically. You're not going to stop until that happens. It can be common. It's a common stance that people might take in negotiation, but it's certainly not the most effective. It's not about building relationship, that position. Then we have, this is a more diplomatic one. It's like, we've got to both win or there's no deal. We have to both come to a resolution here, or it's not going to happen. It's not going to be that one person dominates over the other. It has to be either we agree or disagree. And in some situations, this one will be, we have to agree to disagree on this situation. Doesn't look like we're going to come to a solution, so we're going to have to leave it. There is no resolution and there is no benefit. And so in that situation, there is no deal. There can be great emotional freedom and a great level of respect when you sometimes get to, even though it's frustrating, there can be a level of respect in that situation. So you can see there's no perfect one, and sometimes one is more relevant than the other. And can I share with you in going into the mediations, what I've been taught, and I found this very powerful, is to never say to people that are in mediation, is everybody happy? Because that's not what mediation is about. No one is ever happy. And if people have compromised in some way in order to reach a negotiation, they won't be happy, and they can then say, well, actually, no, I'm not happy. And we go back into conflict again. The key here, a better question to ask is around, what can I live with? And I want you to think about that in terms of creating influence or going into negotiation. You obviously have the best possible outcome, but what can you live with and what can't you live with? What will you not compromise on? And that gives you some benchmarks in terms of what you can aim for or where you can potentially land when you're going into a communication situation. So think about, what the benchmarks and the parameters are, what you can live with. But be careful you don't put yourself in the compromise of, oh, that's okay, that'll do, that'll be fine, don't want to push. Does anybody have any thoughts, questions or comments about that before I move on? Does that help give you a little bit of clarity? All good? If you do have any questions at any time, just open up your mic or pop it in the chat. I don't mind at all. It's good, in fact. All right, what we're going to look at now is the non-verbal communication. Great clarity. Thank you. I'm assuming that's a compliment, Sharon. Thank you. So what we're going to look at now is non-verbal communication. This stuff really fascinates me. It's a lot of signs and signals, and it's not necessarily the words. And if you have a look at this, isn't this interesting? 93% of communication is non-verbal. And we kind of know that, don't we? It's not necessarily the words, it's how people speak the words. And look how much is attributed to physiology. That's body language, appearance, all of those things. We do judge a book by its cover, don't we? So there's a lot that influences people's understanding of what you're communicating with them that is not the words. Words are only 7%, only 7%. It's so much other stuff. We all know how easy it is for emails to get misinterpreted, right? Or text messages. I'm sure we've all had those situations. So I'm going to give you a bit of demonstration in terms of how that works. In terms of how easily text can be misinterpreted if you just rely on words alone. So we've got this sentence: I did not steal your money last night. Now, what I'm going to do is show you how that sentence can completely change its meaning simply by me changing the tone and inflection on my voice. And you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So the whole meaning, you've already got it in your mind, an interpretation of what that sentence means, but I'm going to flip it on its head. So first one, oops, I'm putting the emphasis on I did not steal your money last night. I didn't steal your money last night. So it was not me, it was someone else. That's what that means, me putting that emphasis on the word I. I did not steal your money last night. So I didn't steal it, I just borrowed it. I didn't steal your money last night. I did not steal your money last night. So, hey, don't worry, it's not yours. It's the company's money, right? It wasn't your money, somebody else's. Just by me putting the inflection on the word your. I did not steal your money last night. It wasn't your money I stole. So I didn't steal your money, but your man, well, that's another story. I could have stolen your husband last night. I didn't. It's okay. I'm just giving you an example. I did not steal your money last night. So last night you were safe. It was another time that I robbed you. So you can see by me just changing the inflection on that word can totally change a potential interpretation on that sentence. So you can see how easily people, I've seen it so many times in I can't tell you how many times in mediation, a text or an email has come up where someone has interpreted it to mean something and then they've come into conflict and they've totally misinterpreted it. Yeah. So it's so easy to get the message wrong if you just rely on that. I'm going to show you now. I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute just so I can prepare the screen to share a video. I'm going to show you a video by a man by the name of Alan Peace. He's an Australian. I love Alan Peace. I'm a huge fan of Alan Peace. Has everyone, I can't see the chat now. I'd love to know if you've heard. You can pop it in the chat in a minute. Or maybe I can, I can see the chat, I can't see you. So if you've heard of Alan Peace before, would love for you to pop it in the chat. He's an Australian man who's been around forever, and he is a guru on body language and the messages that people communicate and they may not be aware of with their body language. And here's the really cool thing. If you know what signals, how those signals work, you can actually influence people by using body language. He's really, really fascinating. So this video goes for about 10 minutes. If for any reason you can't hear it or you can't see it, please just open up your mic and let me know. But it should be good. I've changed the settings on my Zoom so that you can hear it. And I'd love to hear your thoughts at the end of the video.
Good morning. Before we kick off, let's get a bit of light in the room, guys, so I can see the faces. So when I grab some of the participants that we get a little later, I see where you are. That's a bit better. Good. Everybody hold your right hand in front like this in handshaking position. Uncross your legs, take a relaxed position, right hand in front. Now, when I say the word now, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you to turn to someone beside you, shake hands as if you're meeting for the first time, and keep pumping till I ask you to stop. Then you'll stop and freeze it, and we're going to analyse what's happening. You got that? You don't have time to think about this? Do it now. Pick anybody and pump, pump. Everybody, pump, 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 pump. Freeze it, hold it, stop, hold it, freeze it. Keep your hands locked. Keep them locked. Person whose hand is most on top is saying, I'll be the boss for the rest of the day. And when you meet people for the very first time, the first 4 minutes of meeting a new person, you decide pretty much 80% of your attitude about them, don't you? In fact, it's over 80%. You decide in the first 4 minutes of meeting somebody whether you're going to give them a fair go, a fair hearing, or whether you're going to reject them. And the first thing that's likely to happen is this thing called a handshake. And I'm going to try a couple of the front row here. You get 1 to 3 feelings when you lock hands with people. The first feeling is, that feels pretty good. Actually, I think you and I will get on pretty well. I think we could do business together. I think we're going to get on well. That was a good one. Let's try a second one. Okay. Just check my cash, see if it's still all there. Yeah. I felt a bit intimidated then. Let's try the third one. Yes, you'll do anything I want, won't you? Now, actually, you all had roughly the same handshake, but you do get 1 to 3 gut feelings. It has to do with 2 things. One is the angle of the hand, and second is the power of the hand. Now, I'll demonstrate. Let's get this gentleman in the front row. Can you come and join me up here, please? Yes, fellow looking concerned. Come up here. Here is your modern Western handshake. Here's how it looks. It's been in this position for about 2,000 years. Now, if you go back 4,000 years to the Roman era, on vases, you would have seen it looking like this. That's its original position. It has several significances. So what would happen is that the troop leaders would meet after battle or training, and they're always men, so this has remained a male activity until recent times. When they would meet, they would do this. If his arm was stronger, it would go something like this, and you'd all say, he's got the upper hand. Upper hand is an ancient Roman expression. Now, if he's got the upper hand, it means his guys get the first crack at the whining, the dining, and the dancing. My guys have to wait. Now, if it goes the other way, my guys get first crack. If it's in the middle, it's 50-50. This was originally done squatting. Now we do it standing, so the fingers are below the wrist instead of above. But essentially, we have the same position. So that's why when the hands lock, if his hand is slightly on top, it doesn't have to be right on top, just a little bit. I'll get a feeling at a gut level. Now, we think this is hardwired because you've never been trained to decode this. I get a feeling he's coming on a bit heavy. And he feels like, yeah, I think I can dominate here. If it goes the other way, I feel like, yeah, I got this sucker all lined up, haven't I, huh? So how do you create rapport with a handshake? Here are the 2 rules. First, keep your hand absolutely straight. Second, and this takes a bit of practice, particularly if you're a female, give the same pressure you receive. So on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say that a 10's a really strong one, and a 1's 4 breakfast sausages, okay? Now let's try it again. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, yours is about a 7. Mine's about a 7 too, so therefore it felt pretty good. Neither got the upper hand, the dominant hand, and that's why at a gut level, we both felt pretty good when we met. You know, I could see the look on your face, you felt okay. Yeah, that felt good. Yeah, that's very good. Now, what happens if you meet someone who's got, let's say this time you're going to give me a 9, and I've only got a 7, so give me a 9 in intensity. Whoa, now the hand will go straight on top. I've got to respond with an extra 20% just to level it up. Because if I don't, he's going to have 1 up on me before we start. He'll know it, and I'll know it, but not a word's been said. Make sense? Give him a round of applause. Thank you. Now, there are more connections between your brain and the palm of your hands than any other body part. Did you know this? More connections between the brain and the palm of the hands, including men, ladies, than any other body part. So clearly the palms have evolved as a very important part of human beings, and they are. They make your bed, they brush your hair, they do small artwork, they do handshakes, they play the piano. In fact, they do more things than most other body parts. But here's my question to you. When you're dealing with people where you want to persuade them, convince them, get them on side, you want to get them to say yes to whatever you're proposing, whether it's that job or that date, or just to get your idea and accept it, where are your palms as you're talking? Now, this is something that most people have never considered. Never. You know, after the session, you'll consider it, you'll think about it, and later today, you'll start to realise things about why people respond to you in the way they do that you've never thought about. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say the same thing 3 times. I'm going to change only what I do with the palms of my hands. Now, I keep my body fairly still, so I don't use any other body signals to infiltrate this. And I'll keep my voice as close to the same as I can. I say as close as I can because we know that when you change your body language, it's hardwired in your brain to change the way you sound. So I'll try to keep it as close as I can sound-wise. And I'll use exactly the same words, same instruction 3 times. Now, your task is to decide, do you accept what I'm saying? Do you want to do it, or do you reject me? Do you want to fight me, or do you want to go along with it? You want to say yes or no. That's all you've got to do. Okay, we're clear on this? Here we go. First instruction. Now, don't do this, just imagine this is what we're going to do. Now, in a moment, I'm going to ask the people who are sitting in these seats here, I'll invite you to come and sit on this side of the room, please. And I'll invite the people here to take their seats. Now, those in the back of the room can come forward to the front, and those of you in the front can sit anywhere you choose. Now, raise your hand if you feel okay about what I'm asking. Who feels okay? Raise your hand. Okay, so just about all of you are prepared to do what I want. You don't even know what it is, but you're prepared to get up and do what I want because you feel like I won't threaten you, I won't intimidate you, Ellen won't make me look silly. This could be a bit of fun. That's what your mind's thinking because I use a signal that appealed to your ancient brain. Let's try the second instruction. Same words, same voice, changing only the palm. Here we go. Now I'm going to ask the people sitting on this side of the room here, I'll invite you to come and take these seats. And the people there, if you can sit over here, please. Those at the back, come forward, please, and sit here. And those in the front can sit anywhere they like. Give me a word that goes with this. What are you feeling? A word. Okay, who feels like you're getting an order? Raise your hand if you've got an order. Okay, think about this. So are you telling me that all I have to do is change my palms from an upward position where you wanted to do anything I wanted without question? Now I've turned it over. Now you're saying to yourself, hang on a minute, this guy's giving me an order. Well, maybe I don't want to do that. I'm an independent. I'll just check it all out. Make me laugh. Funny guy. So now, many of you are resisting. Let's try the third approach. Now, I'm going to ask the people sitting in these seats here, if you can come and sit over this side of the room, please, and those in those seats can sit here. At the back of the room, if you can come forward, please, sit here. And those in the front can go anywhere you like. Now, give me a word that goes with this, a word. And not a gesture, a word. I guess that was a word. What are you feeling with this? Well, this is more than an order. This is a directive. You have no choice, and you're an idiot. So we tested this in a very simple way. We've got an audience to sit in a room like this. We've got a speaker to present a proposal. It took around 20 minutes. They had to convince the audience to go along with the proposal. But the speaker was instructed to do the same thing 3 times with 3 audiences, same demographic. We just changed the audiences. Now, the first time the speaker spoke, primarily using palm up position, like this. So that was the way the proposal worked. And here's the bottom line. It would work for you, sir. It would work for you, ma'am. It would work in Australia. It would work in America. It would work, and that's the way they did it for the first proposal. We moved that audience out, put in a second audience now. Same presentations given to the same demographic audience now, but a different audience using palm down. Here's the way the deal works. There's the bottom line. It would work for you. It would work for you. It would work in America. It would work in the United States and in Iceland. Move that audience out, put in a third one. Now give the same presentation using finger pointing. Here's the way it works. The bottom line's there and there. It'll work for you, and America, Australia, and Africa. Now we survey all 3 audiences looking for 2 things. First, with a simple test, how much could they recall of what the deal was about? In other words, we're looking for how much were they listening to the deal as opposed to judging the speaker. Secondly, from a list of adjectives, we asked them to tick the adjectives that best describe how you felt about the speaker. Do you reckon there was any difference? You already know the answer, don't you? You know the answer already without even seeing the results. That the palm up speaker had up to 40% more retention of the deal than the palm down speaker. The palm up speaker had the best adjectives: laid back, friendly, humorous, engaging. As soon as the palms turned over, authoritative, management, telling me what to do, pushing. When the finger came out, nobody could remember much, and they got the worst adjectives about that person. Now here's my question for you. What's your prominent position? You have a dominant position of one of these, and which is yours? Most people have never considered, but you've got one that you are using primarily when you're dealing with others. Now, is it up? Is it over? It's a finger. Now, we know the palm down, historically, is a power signal. There's more power, in fact, 4 times more power in your hands facing down than up. Think of famous examples like Adolf Hitler. The Nazis salute when Hail Hitler, and it frightened everybody. How would he have gone if he had gone, Hail Hitler? Nobody's going to follow Hail Hitler. That's scary. That's submission. Now, here's the good news about this, that you can change and modify your hand signals with a little practice. Now, when you first start to do this, what happens if later today or tonight you suddenly discover you're a finger pointer? Like you're talking to a few of your friends that are here and you've forgotten all about it, and you're talking and they're watching, looking at your hand. And there it is, hitting these silly idiots on the head, knocking them into submission. Now, the thing about body language, it's an outward reflection of your emotional condition. All body language shows is how you're feeling. Whatever attitude or emotion you're feeling is likely to be reflected in a gesture, movement, or posture. Now, the reverse is true as well. If you intentionally take certain positions or postures, then you'll start to feel the emotions that go with it. For example, everybody copy this. It's like a form of praying, just lightly tap it back and forth. Now, put a little smile on your face. No teeth. Call out your attitude. How do you feel when you do this? Yeah, you're hatching a good plan, aren't you? You're pretty smart. You are in charge. In fact, the word that goes with this is confidence. If you're feeling confident, like, I know what I'm talking about, I'm in charge, I'm an expert. This is one that may appear, you may unconsciously use it. But if you intentionally use this in situations where you feel intense or nervous, it does two things. First is when you intentionally take the gesture as you just did, you start to feel more confident, in charge. In charge of my emotions. Importantly, the person who sees you do it, it's a feeling. You seem to know what you're about. You know what it was? You know, when I first met that guy or that woman, they just seemed to have a confident attitude. Well, no, they were probably intentionally doing to create that, to reassure themselves and to make you feel good. Fake it until you make it. Now, if you keep on doing this as part of your repertoire, eventually you will constantly, when you do this, you will feel confident about what you're talking about, even when you don't. So you can go into politics. So here's my question to you. What is your dominant position? Palm up, palm over, finger point. Think about life today, in business and in personal relationships. It's all first about people. Does somebody buy you? Now, if somebody buys you, particularly the first 4 minutes, they're forming up to 90% of their opinion about you. If they buy you, there's a good chance they'll buy whatever goes with you. What goes with you is what you want them to do. The other thing is also true. If they don't buy you, they're not going to buy whatever goes with you, even if it's a good idea. They don't get that connection. They feel that you don't like them or you're threatening or intimidating. Suddenly they just don't want to say yes to whatever you're suggesting, even if this is a good idea. So you can practice palms up where you want to get cooperation. Now, sometimes you might want a bit of authority. You'll turn the palm over. So, for example, if the fire alarm went off in this building, I would say, now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go by that exit, and that exit, and that exit. I wouldn't say, now, here's what we need to do. We're going to go... Because it'd be every man for himself if I did this. So by intentionally practicing positions, suddenly with the palm up, you'll find that people start feeling like they're drawn to you. In fact, as we've been talking, I've been doing the Obama hug. We want to help the American people. We want you to come here. Yeah, we love you, like your mum or dad cuddling you. Like I think of his predecessor, he said, we want to help everybody. We want to help you, and you. Body language is an outward reflection of emotions. If you intentionally take certain positions and practice them, it suddenly changes how people perceive you, and it changes your own physiology. You start to feel different about yourself. That's the great thing about it. You can do things on purpose, which gives you a greater chance of getting a yes to the job, the proposal, to the idea, to the date, or better.
All righty. I would love to hear from you what you take away from that. Does anyone know if they're a finger pointer, a palms up, or a palms down speaker? Do any of you know? You might be more aware. You might be more self-conscious of it now. I know I am. Do you know, I find body language is one of the most powerful tools in communication. Rosa said, I've never really paid attention, however, I will now. It is such a powerful tool in communication. So when I'm doing speaking and presentations, which is why I love you to all have your cameras on, there's a lot that I can see in body language about how people are engaging. Kate, no worries. Kate's just said she has to go, so that's all good. There's a few people that will come and go throughout the training. So yeah, there's lots of things that body language can do. I want to share with you some of my favorites that I like to do. If you're in a networking event, people often laugh at this one, and you want people to think that you're listening. Alan Pease taught me this one. Put your finger on your chin and nod your head. So doesn't it look like I'm listening? Yeah, and if I squint a little bit, so I can be bored to tears with what you're saying, but if I go, like that, then you'll think that I'm listening to you. If you ask me a question, I might be caught out. And I will use body language when I'm speaking exactly the same way that Alan Pease spoke about in terms of connecting an audience. Smiling is so underrated as a powerful tool for engagement. So think soft eyes, soft mouth. If a smile sends a subconscious, a subliminal message to the subconscious of the person that you are speaking to, that you are not a threat. So of course, if I'm smiling, I'm warm to you, I'm entertained by you, I'm showing perhaps some affection or some admiration. Dare I say it, you've probably all heard of this term called resting bitch face. It's not a very nice term, yeah? People have heard of that? And I've actually, when I've done training with people where they've had to communicate to people that they're not angry, they are not annoyed, they're just concentrating, they don't always have a smile on their face, and they've actually had to tell their team that that's what's going on. Body language can so easily be misinterpreted. For example, have you ever had to speak to a group of people and people are going like this? A lot of people do that out of comfort or self-conscious, but it can sometimes be a signal too that people are close to your ideas. It's not always right, but it's really interesting what people's position can do. So as Alan said, if you can force yourself to do some of these body language things and make a conscious decision in the moment, you can actually shift people's perception of you very, very easily. A smile, if you're sitting at a table, leaning in to somebody, because that means you're leaning into their conversation, the finger on the chin. Watch out that you don't scratch your nose. I'm so paranoid about this one. I always get an itchy nose whenever I go to talk to somebody. If you scratch your nose while you're talking to people, they can think that you are lying. I'll give you an example. Yeah, no worries. I can do that job. Easy. Yep, totally. I'm competent in that. Do you trust me? No, I look shady, don't I? Yeah, no worries. Yeah, we've fully got that covered. I don't know what it is and why that it's a body language thing. So another one I found really interesting, and you may or may not get to use this one, in public speaking, I've seen really powerful speakers do this, and you watch politicians do this. When they have audience and they really want you to pay attention at the beginning of their speech, they won't speak, they will stand still, they will lean forward, and they normally wait about 3 seconds. They even do it in movies where they create this false sense of silence, you know, like the quiet in the room. And people do that to capture your attention. One of the things that Alan Pease said as well, does that make sense? Put your hands up. Does everybody get that? Does that make sense? He's making you put your hand into, you just can't help yourself, and you're going, I agree, and he's getting your buy-in to his argument. So we're going to talk in a minute about questions and how powerful they are. Even in mediation, can I tell you that they teach us, when you train to be a mediator, they teach us a body language technique. So when people are in conflict, they often won't look at each other. And you want them to get into a conversation with each other so they can resolve their issues. Typically, they will turn to you and say, oh, this person's doing this and I don't like that. And so what you have to do is use language to say, can you tell Fred what it is that it upsets you about the situation or whatever? And when they start talking to you, you don't look back at them, you look at Fred. You actually turn and look at Fred so that the person is forced to turn their body and start facing and talking to Fred, with whom they have issue. So there's so many powerful tools. And Alan Pease has written lots of books and done lots of videos. And there's other people that do stuff in this area as well. It can make a really big difference where you position yourself in a boardroom. They're all subtle things that can make quite a difference to people's gut feeling about how they feel about you. Did anyone else pick up anything from that little presentation from Alan Pease? Does anybody have any questions or thoughts about that you want to share? If you do, by all means, pop it in the chat. Angela said, I'm going to watch all his videos. Yeah, he's a really, really interesting person. I actually heard him, I've always been a huge fan. He came to Alice Springs, where I live, a couple of years ago, and I saw him speak, and he did a presentation. He actually used to be very famous on Australian TV, analysing photographs of politicians and celebrities. And when he came to Alice Springs, he analysed pictures of Donald Trump, and he told us what the pictures were telling us about Donald Trump. Very interesting. Rosie, did you go to that one? I know that no, you didn't. Oh, it was so good. All right, I'm going to share my screen again. Just turn off some of those things. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into some of the tools that you can use for the communication. So one of the things that Alan Pease says is that questions are the answers. And he actually says that the person who is asking the questions is actually the person who is in control of a conversation. When I was being trained by a professional salesperson, he taught me how powerful questions are to create influence and build rapport with the people that you're communicating with. So there's a lot of different ways that can work really, really well. And if you remember nothing else, adopt a position of curiosity. Just ask lots of questions of that person and show that you're invested and that you care and that you're interested. And the reason questions are so powerful is that they compel a person to engage in conversation with you. It compels the person to think about what you're asking and to respond and engage with you. And it gets them to lean in to the conversation. It allows you to focus quite often when you're in a persuasive thing is to think about the big picture or the higher order, or to change perspective or consider another point of view. And I'm going to teach you some of these questions later on. They are so powerful. So rather than telling somebody what they should do or why they should do it, ask them a question that helps them to come to that realization. And we're going to talk a bit more about that too. It allows you to be descriptive without being judgmental. So, for example, I'm curious, why did you choose to wear red to a bullfight? You know, the old saying that bulls are attracted to red. It could be something like that. So rather than me saying, oh, you don't wear red to a bullfight, you would ask the question that allows you to point out something, but without being judgmental. And of course, it creates a feedback loop where that's really important for influence, is asking a question. Sounds obvious, but asking a question gives you intel on what that person is thinking. It informs you of where their position is, how they're feeling about something, what their concerns are. So it's really, really powerful to use questions to create influence. And there's a variety of different questions that you can use. So things like, are you open to? What are your thoughts on? So what I'm hearing you say is this, this, and this. Is that right? Would I be right in saying that this is a priority for you? How about, what else have we got? Does this work for you? That's one that works really well in negotiation. How does that fit for you? And my favorite one, especially in conflict or tensions or in negotiations, what's going to make this right? If you want to be able to resolve a difficult situation, and this is where if someone, in terms of influence, if you want someone to back down or to forgive something you've done wrong or a mistake, what will make it right? It's really, really powerful question. It may not be exactly that question, but that intent. We're going to talk a little bit about that one later on. It's important that you ask the right question. What I mean by that is we don't just default to questions we feel comfortable with. How are you today? Good. How are you? That's a classic example. We want to use questions that really match the situation. So just to be really brief and to be really obvious, there's typically 4 key areas that we have in any situation where we're wanting to create influence or negotiation. So we might want facts, for example. Who's doing this? When will you action this? What can we expect from this project? This is where you're wanting people to commit to something. You want to lock them in. So, for example, yeah, we should definitely talk about that. Okay, when's a good time for you? Does Thursday work for you? We're actually wanting to kind of lock people in and commit. But it could be, the facts and the details. The feelings is going to be more where you might use this as a leader or a manager, where someone's not performing well and you want to influence the way that they're working. So what's your biggest concern? Are you okay with this? Is this something you feel comfortable doing? Is this overwhelming you? What do you think about this? What are your thoughts? What's your opinion on this? So feeling words can be good to understand what else is going on in the situation. Findings is more about implications. This is more about, think of this in a analysis kind of situation. So what are the consequences if we do this? What effect will this have on your budget? How did this mistake happen? What led to this actually happening? What outcomes can we expect from this project? So again, in a negotiation, this could be what's in it for us, essentially, right? Like if you're trying to broker a deal with a stakeholder, what are the benefits? What are the measures of success? It's all about benchmarking, really, the finding stuff. And firm decision is obviously getting a decision and a commitment. When should we start? When shall we meet? Do you agree? So are you on board? Are you ready to take this next step? What would you like or what would you need in order for us to take the next step? So you can see there's different approaches. And to give you an example, if I walked into the boss's office and said, am I getting a pay rise? They could say, yes, you will get a pay rise. But that's not what I really want to know, is it? I want to know when. When am I getting my pay rise? And what's it going to be? Yeah. So you get the answer depending on your question. And if you're not getting what you need, then you probably need to ask the same question in a different way. So what you need to think about when you're going into a conversation is, what is the information you want to gather from the person, and then think about what are the questions you want to ask in relation to that. Can I tell you, whenever I go into conversations, like, for example, in mediation, I have a list of questions, like a menu of questions that are prompts for me. I don't just rely on my brain to remember them. And no doubt you do it in performance management meetings or any kind of conversation. So I'd encourage you, for any kind of conversation you're about to go into where you want to create influence, think about the type of information you want to gather to determine what type of question you're going to ask. Does anybody have any questions or comments around that they want to ask? Anything they want to share?
I have a question.
Yes, Ashish.
What do you do if you have some, I'm wondering how to put this. As, for example, you were giving examples in, when you're getting into a meeting and something, how do you control your feelings? Sometimes you are nervous. Sometimes you think, oh, I have to ask these many questions. And as soon as you step in the meeting, the dynamics of the meeting changes.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, how can you possibly remember? And I think when you go into a stress situation, it is a lot harder to remember. That is why it is useful to write those questions down. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with actually, depending on the nature of the meeting, go, look, I do this. I go, look, I'm just going to check to see if there's anything else I needed to check in with you. Is there anything else I need to cover? Is there a question I haven't asked you? It shows that you are prepared for the meeting or the conversation that you're going into to do that. So if you can write down those notes and the things, and be prepared about what it is, be clear in your mind about what information you want to get as a result of the meeting. But also you can use those body language techniques that Alan Pease says. So even if you don't, like, I want to go like this in a conversation, I really want to go like this, but I force myself to go like that and drop my shoulders, slowing down your breathing, Ashish, and also don't rush, right? There is the person who pauses, there's a lot of power. For example, if I go like this, let me ask you a question, right? So I look more powerful when I do that rather, yes, let's see, is there some, I think I want to ask you a question. Yeah.
And especially when it's your boss, actually, you know, you go into the meeting and you have to be very cautious because, hey, he or she is your boss. So you have to make sure you listen to him very patiently as much as you can. So yeah, specifically, you know, when I step into a meeting with my boss, I prepare myself. I am going to listen here. I'm not going to speak.
Yeah. And I would encourage you to ask questions. Even if you think you know the answer, ask questions, because remember what Alan Pease said, the person who is asking questions is the person who's in control. Sometimes when I do this training, I actually play a game. It's very hard. It's very difficult, but it's a game where you can only have a conversation in question. And it's really interesting because what you experience is a shift in dynamic in like the handshake in terms of who has power in the conversation. And because it's the person who's asking the question is in control and driving the conversation, it's like, who's driving this car? It's a weird sensation. So yeah, if you feel nervous going into a meeting or a conversation, I'd be thinking about what questions you want to ask. Think about a job interview. You're often judged in a job interview by the question you ask at the end. When they say to you, do you have any questions? If you don't ask one, or if it's a silly question, you might often be judged on the quality of that question. So they're very, very powerful. Does anybody else have any questions, comments, or thoughts around that? All right. If you do, pop it in the chat. I'm going to now share with you, we're going to go into a little bit more technicality now, again, to show you how this is applied. This technique, this questioning technique is applied in the medical practice. It is something called, it's used in a lot of industry. It's used in corrections and policing. It's used in interrogations as well when you're wanting somebody to confess. It's called motivational interviewing. And essentially, you're asking questions to help people come to a self-realization and to take a course of action that you would like them to take. But you do that by asking it questions. So you're motivating them to take a course of action simply by the questions that you're asking. It's really, really interesting. And people who've mastered this are very clever. So for example, detectives getting a confession out of somebody use this technique. It's used a lot in this example that I'm going to show you is actually a bit of a training video that is done in the medical profession. So how doctors can persuade somebody to take a course of action for their own health, particularly if they're disagreeable. So I'm just going to stop sharing so I can prepare the screen so you can see the video well. Okay. Let me know if you can't hear it or see it. Oops, sorry.
I don't think it's the case that people are either not motivated or motivated. And in fact, motivational interviewing was born from conversations with very, very difficult people who were classified as not at all motivated to change and very resistant to treatment. Well, Mr. Smith, that's your medication sorted out.
Good.
Blood pressure's a little on the high side.
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder if I could raise the subject of your weight.
What?
I wondered if we could spend just a couple of minutes talking about your weight.
You are joking, aren't you? I mean, look, if I've made time in my day to come here,
Yeah.
I'm kept in your waiting room for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable. You know, if I make an appointment with a client for 10, I expect them to start at 10, not quarter to 11.
Right, and so you're busy enough. And
I've got other things to do. I've got accounts to do. I've got clients to coming in.
Yeah.
You know.
And it wasn't necessarily easy for you to make the time to come down, and you had to wait in the waiting room. And now I raise the subject of weight.
Yeah, I mean, okay, fair enough. I've got to have my blood pressure medication changed, but I really haven't got time to talk about my weight. I mean, you know, I'm aware of my weight. I'm aware of the problems, and I'm also aware of the solutions.
Right.
So I don't really need a discussion. It's just I've got too much to do at the moment, you know.
Right, and so it's been a bit of a rush for you coming in.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry about the wait in the waiting room.
Well, it's bad form, you know.
Yeah. That's not easy for you, because you'd like to go really soon, and here I am asking you to spend just a couple of minutes with me.
Yeah, but basically I've got things to do. I've got to get back to the office. I've got a pile of work that I've got to deal with.
Yep.
And every moment out of my day means I have to work in the evening or weekends.
It counts.
Or when you're self-employed, you haven't got a choice, you know?
Exactly. It's up to you. Just a couple of minutes.
Well, I'm here now, so okay, if it's a couple of minutes,
I promise.
Okay, because I really must get on.
I want to simply ask you how you feel about it.
About what? What, losing weight? Well, obviously I want to. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, I'm aware that I'm over my balanced weight, but I know that it's causing problems. I mean, obviously I get out of breath if I have to do something a bit hurry, and I realise that I'm on this blood pressure.
Right.
And maybe that's probably contributing to it.
Right, so you can see the links between your weight and your health, and you'd like things to be
I mean, there are other things, but I mean, the weight is something I would like to get hold of, get a handle on. Yeah.
You'd like to if you could.
Yeah, I mean, I know the theories of a bit of exercise on a regular basis, a balanced diet, but unfortunately, because of my lifestyle, because of being self-employed as an accountant, it's finding the time to exercise, but also finding the time to sort of think, okay, I'm going to go shopping for this, that, and the other, and I'm going to prepare a meal.
Yeah.
With me, it's very often
ready meals and that sort of thing.
Yeah, food on the run, you know.
Okay, yeah.
Grazing.
Let me see if I can summarize what you've said, and then we'll see what next. You lead a busy life.
Yeah.
You run a business and you've got a lot to do.
Yeah.
You're aware of the links between your health and your weight, and you are concerned to some extent about that. And ideally, it sounds like you'd like to do something about it. It's just that your life is busy and rushed, and you tend to use convenience foods in order to get the work done.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, because of my lifestyle, food is just fuel.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm juggling all these balls and I don't want to drop any.
I get it. And so if you could fit it in, you would like things to be different, but that's not so easy.
No.
Okay. Can I suggest that you come back and see me in a couple of weeks' time just to chat about this?
Okay, I'm up for that, but it's going to be the same problem of A, finding time, and B, if I make an appointment, I don't expect to be kept waiting for half an hour or whatever, because it's...
Exactly. I'll tell you what might be a nice solution is if you come down first appointment, and I give you an appointment at 8:30.
That'd be good.
Then there'll be absolutely no waiting. And the purpose of that visit will be to have a look at how you really feel about how you could move forward and somehow fit in a more healthier lifestyle into the busy work life that you've got.
I'll maybe have a look at my schedules, see whether anything can be arranged, or I can pass something on to some, and so that so it's not a wasted interview. So I can come here and say, okay, I've looked at my schedules, I've looked at things.
Good.
Whatever.
Good. And see if you can fix it up, and also give some thought to what we've talked about.
Yeah, of course.
Good stuff. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Sorry I went off a bit.
A few well-chosen words, a very thoughtful question, can be worth more than many mouthfuls of busy talk.
He was very good at that, don't you think? Like he seemed to have the gift of the gab, that doctor. The point of motivational interviewing is asking the right questions to help people to come to the self-realization of what the key problem is. So essentially that's what that doctor is doing in that situation. He was really disagreeable. Acknowledgement and solving the patient's problems. And what's really key, yes, Rose, that's spot on. And you'll notice too that, and we do this in mediation as well, is paraphrasing what the person has just said, because that's showing that you're listening and you're understanding if you're paraphrasing what they've just communicated to you. What's really important to create influence is to ask the questions to find out what it is somebody wants, what's important to them, feed that back to them, and then you're able to give them a really informed solution to what it is that they want. People who are able to create influence are very good listeners, good question askers and good listeners. And that you can see in that example with that doctor, who was very good at listening to what this really angry man was saying. Did you notice anything else? Anyone else observe something in that example that stood out to you? Did you notice his body language? Did anyone pick up on that? The hand gestures. Yes, Rose, and the nodding of the head. Yeah, got it. Yeah. Yeah, empathetic and open. Yes, empathy is a really key word there as well. I'm going to share with you now a little bit, and you go, oh, how can I do that in the moment? Like, how am I going to remember that? So I'm just going to give you a bit of a formula. So if you've got again, it's my favorite person. It's the Alan Peace model. So if you've got a pen and paper, this is the formula that Alan Peace often shares with people. Oops, sorry, I didn't put my phone on silent. I did it before my presentation. I'm not sorry if you heard that ringing. So this is the Alan Peace model. He says this is a great formula. I don't know if I would necessarily remember it in the moment, but I've certainly applied it and it works really, really well. So these are the questions he says that works in most situations, where you say to the person, what's your number one priority? Now, if you think about going into a negotiation with a stakeholder, or you want to get a sponsor or something like that, or you're trying to do business with someone, you're trying to sell an idea, you want to find out what is the most important thing to them. Certainly in mediation, that's the first question I ask. What do you want to get out of this conversation that we're going to have? So when I'm preparing the person, what do you want to see happen? Why did you pick that? Why is that? Why did you pick that one out of all of the options? Why was it that one that you chose? And then the next one is, why is that important to you? So they're very similar questions. Why did you pick that one? They'll probably tell you why it's important. But either way, you want to kind of get to what it is that is what's underneath that decision about what they're picking as being really important to them. And so now what you're getting to is a bit of a pain point with them. What is going to determine or make or break the decision that they're going to make about whatever it is you're putting to them? And what are the consequences of not having the opportunity, or not having that thing, or of that thing being taken away, or that thing being achieved? So basically, if I take that most important thing away from you, what will happen? Really, really important, because you're putting fear and risk into the consequence. The doctor didn't quite do it, but they're often very good at that in motivational interviewing. They'll find out what's important to somebody, why it's important, and then they create risk around it. It's almost like they're taking it away from them. So they want to, from an influential point of view, you want to then say to them, well, what I'm proposing to you is going to protect that thing that is most important to you, is essentially what you're trying to do. And then why would that worry you? If you lost this thing, why would that worry you? So those questions, notice they're all questions. Those questions really, really help you to formulate a solution that you're going to provide. In mediation, I can't offer up a solution, but I help people come to a self-realization. in the health practice with motivational interviewing. Sometimes they will make recommendations, but they're working towards the person coming to the self-realization. So if you get the questioning right, and that's a great formula that Alan Peace has got there, then you can help people come to that self-realization. I'm going to show you an even simpler trick. Whoops. Back this way. Have you heard of the boiling frog? Has everyone heard the story of the boiling frog? Most of you know the story. So Ashish, you've heard the story. So how it works with the boiling frog is if I put a frog, it sounds terrible. If I put a frog into a pot of cool or tepid water, the frog will sit there quite comfortably. Now, if I put a frog into a pot of boiling water, that frog would go, I'm going to die in here. I'm going to jump out. That's too hot. But if I put a frog into the tepid water and ever so slowly turn the temperature up until it reaches boiling point, then the frog will not notice that it's about to die, that the water is boiling. So what you have to do in terms of negotiation, this is particularly useful in change management. If you're wanting to influence people to change the way they're working or to adopt new ideas, you apply the boiling frog methodology. So basically how that works, I'm going to do a little animation here for you. This is the end result. This is the questions that Alan Peace asks. This is the fear. If you don't do this thing, you're going to boil. So what you have to do in terms of communicating, if you know what the boiling point is for your person that you're talking to, is to bring that scenario forward. So you're basically saying to people, if we don't do this now, if we don't turn the temperature down now, you're going to boil to death. So we're basically painting a picture down the road now so people take action now rather than later. Does that make sense? Do you get how that works? So it's actually a method that's quite often used in sales, but it can be used in terms of change management or encouraging people to adopt new ideas or new methods. Rosie, I'm sure you do this in risk stuff all the time, right? Yeah. If we don't implement this stuff now, you could have an accident later. You could cause this problem later. So we need to make sure we're doing this stuff now to prevent something happening later on. So you have to paint a really ugly picture, probably. A really, really ugly picture that people go, oh, I don't want that. I really don't want that. So you have to understand what that pain point is. Of course, asking those questions can help, but at the very least, you paint that picture. All right, we're going to shift angle a little bit now. I'm just going to focus on, now we're going to look at different personality types and the way that people like to communicate. This image is probably only Australians will recognize this picture, and probably only Australians of a certain age. Does anyone want to have a guess what this picture is that I'm using? Does anyone know? It's a bit of a fun trick question.
Looks like play school.
Yay, you win. Yep. So these children, many Australians grew up on this TV show called Play School. And in Play School, the presenters would say, we're going to look through the window today. Which window are we going to look through? And there would be the arch, the circle, or the square. And so in theory, you would be choosing how you were going to view the world today. And I think it's a great analogy to go that the view outside is exactly the same, but how we all view it is different. What window do we view the world through, right? So has anyone done any personality profiling or personality tests at work or any other way, like DISC or Myers-Briggs? Ashish, you've done it. Rosie's done it. So if you have, you can pop it in the chat too, if you've ever done it. This is very similar. we all have a particular style in terms of how, Angela said me, yeah, but a lot of people have. A lot of people have a way that they like to communicate and a way they like to be communicated with, right? So we're really going to delve into that. There is testing that you can do around this to see what your preference is. Your challenge is to try and determine what the preferred style is of the person. If you're talking to one or two people, what their preferred style is, and they should send you signals. There's things that you want to look out for. It can be words that they use, behavior, things that they resonate with or comment on, the things they engage with. All of those things will be signs to tell you what kind of personality they are. So typically, people like to communicate in 4 different ways. This is really common. They're either people. They love, and we'll go into this a bit more, what that means. They're ideas people, or they like to understand and learn and hear about the process. That's me and Rosie. We're like that, aren't we? We love the process, or they love action. So let's dig a little deeper to see what that means for each of those people. So the people-orientated communicators, they're very much focused on who's going to own this, who is the head of this, who is the driver, who will I talk to, who will I be working with, who. So they are very much, they will love to hear about the social process, interactions, what the motivations are, where the team fits in, how they'll get to talk, who they get to talk with, feelings, needs, expectations, personal growth, self-actualization, what's in it for me, what am I going to learn, who am I going to talk to, what am I going to get out of it. They love the entertainment side of it. They love the connection and socialization. They love spontaneity, the sensitivity, the emotion, and being subjective. So if you've got someone who's very expressive and emotive, I can fit into this category. So the artsy people are likely to fit into this category. The creative and visual people, they're probably going to fit into this category. So essentially it's communications, relations, teamwork. They're going to be the buzz things that they're going to listen for and what you're trying to communicate with them. That's what they're going to love if they're that kind of person. Then we get the idea ones, the idea orientated. They want to know why. So they're going to be really interested in the theories, where this idea's come from, the concepts, the new ways, the problem solving, very much the theory stuff, really. It's very much where this has come from. They might want to know about the research, the facts around this, the findings. So they're going to love it if it's founded on a philosophy or a theory or evidence or research. They love ideas. They probably love big picture stuff. They'll find that really, really interesting. They philosophize as well. They'll probably like that as well. They might not want to know about the nitty-gritty details. It's more about the big picture stuff. Then there's the process, the how. So this is the strategies, the organization, and the facts. This is all the nitty-gritty and the detail, but how? How's it going to do? And what happens when this happens? And what do we do with this? And what are the steps? And I don't know how this is all going to work. That's those kind of people. They will want to know, they'll get bogged down in the detail and want to know the process. So they will like the testing, the controlling, the measures, the systems, the logic. They're going to be very cautious and be risk adverse. So they will want to know that what happens if. What happens if this happens, and how will this idea not fall through the gaps, or how will this thing unfold? They're going to want to know that stuff. So they like to see, if you've only got a short period of time to communicate with these people, I would suggest that you use things like flow charts and things like that. That helps them to see the process that you're going to go through, and the strategy and the structure and the organization. And lastly, we've got the action, they're the what people. So what they're going to want is, what's the goal? They want to know the wins, how things are going to be improved, how they're going to go to the next level. They're very direct and to the point. They're very black and white. Just what's going to happen? How's it going to happen? What's the end goal? What's the result? What's the bottom line? They want to know those kind of results. I just need this to happen. And what about this? And what about that? They're what? That's very much who they are. So if you're communicating to a boardroom of people that's a mix of all of that, you want to be able to try and meet all of those needs in the way that you're presenting, and listen out for the way they engage with things, the questions they ask, or the things that they want to know as you're presenting to them. If it's just one person, you probably want to know what kind of category they're going to fit into. But listening for the language that they use really, really helps. Rosemary said problems and ideas and solutions. Is that you? Yeah? Yeah. Who's had experience with that? Who's kind of used that? I know I use this a lot. I know what my disposition is. I'm a very people person and I'm very process. So I can get easily bogged down with those two things that drives the other people nuts. Just get to the point, or what's the whole reason for why we're doing this? So I have to be careful in how I'm presenting. Does anyone have any other feedback, thoughts, comments, questions about that? Experiences? It's a tricky one, this one, because you sometimes just don't know where people sit, but the things that you want to try and look out for. I love it when I get it, go, I reckon I know what you are. And it's really cool. If you're working, it's really fun when you're working with people within a team to see what they are. There's a great book called, one of my favorites, called Personality Plus by Florence Lytia. And she wrote one called Personality Plus for Work. And it's a great, tells you how to communicate with those different types of people in the workplace. I love it.
Sorry, can you repeat the writer's name?
Florence Lytia. I think I've got the book. Hang on, I'll just grab it out of my bookcase here. This one's not Personality Plus for Work. This one is just the simple Personality Plus one. Can you see that? Florence Lytia. It's a really easy book to read. I love it. It's one of my favorite. Yeah. So that is really powerful in terms of creating influence with people. If you can understand their personality type, you'll be able to really, really fast track. We're going to do something fun and really quick quiz to be able to do this type of assessment. This is a little bit different. This is about learning styles. Really important, again, if you want someone to learn what you're teaching them, learn what you're communicating with them, adopting the ideas, you need to understand how they like to take in new information. So a little bit similar to personality styles, but it's how people like to learn. You have a way that you like to learn, and so that's probably how you like to deliver information and teach people something new, but they might be different to you. So again, we want to look at. So what I mean by that is that there's three main ways. Visual is the most obvious one that we have. So as Alan Piecer said, people make decisions very quickly visually. I think he said 80% of the decisions that we make, we decide within the first 4 minutes based on how people look and present. So it's first impressions are huge. A lot of people take information in visually. About 60% of people are visual learners. So they really respond to body language, facial expressions. It helps them to understand what you're communicating. They very much respond to images, maps, flow charts, diagrams to understand. What you want to look for, or what you want to listen out for, is this kind of language. If they're using, oh, I see what you're saying, I want to look at it a little bit more, or if they use those words, if they're going, oh, I see, yeah, I see, you can rest assured they're probably a visual learner. And if you want to influence them, you want to use words like, you will be able to see a different way of doing things once you adopt this amazing thing I'm showing you. If you want to object to what someone is saying, you use language like, I see what you're saying there. However, la, 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 la. That might be the kind of language you use if you're wanting to challenge some of their ideas. All right, then we've got the auditory learners. So 20% of the population are auditory learners. So if you're an auditory learner, you're really understanding what it is I'm communicating by the inflection and tone and emphasis that I'm using. You love it when I pause to make things clearer or give you time to listen in on what it is that I'm saying. And quite often auditory learners benefit from reading things aloud. They are able to understand it a lot better. And so information stands out based on pace, volume, energy, articulation. So if you want to influence them, you want to use language like, let's talk about a different way of doing things. Let's talk that through. And sounds like this is something that's really important to you. Rather than looks like, you'd say, sounds like this is really important for you. Does this ring true for you? Does that ring a bell? It's all sound words. And so if you want to challenge them, you would be saying things like, I hear what you're saying. However, da, 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 da. So you listen out for words that they're using or how they're integrating with you. Then we've got the kinesthetic learners. So kinesthetic learners make up about 40% of the population. They like to do things by walking through the process. They need to step through it. They need to have the practical application. They love it when I use body language like this. We're going, step one, we're going to do this. Step two, this is the stage. I'm going to take you through it. This is the process. You're going to get a feel for how it works. All of that kind of language is really going to resonate with them. They very much like body language that takes them through a journey, a physical process. If I'm moving from here to here. And so we'll use language like, let's touch upon this. Let's get a feel for this. If you want, let's get a grasp on what's going on here. If you want to object or challenge, I know how you feel, however, la, la, la. Or you might be saying things like, what's your gut instinct here? What's your gut feeling? That kind of language they really, really resonate with. So we're going to do a little test. I always love seeing this, but disclaimer, this is by no means accurate. We're doing this for fun, right? We're going to do this for fun. I'm going to give you a series of statements. Rosie's saying pace and pausing is well practiced in public speaking. Yes, so it really makes sense with auditory learning style. Definitely. I think we all adopt a little bit of it, don't we? But for some, it's going to be more prevalent than others. Yeah. So we're going to do a quiz. I'm going to give you some statements and you're going to pick which statement resonates for you. There'll be some letters against each statement. So all you have to do is write down the letter against the statement that most resonates with you. Rosie, have you done this one with me before? No? Oh, good. Okay. This is fun. This is heaps of fun. All right. So, and for the auditory learners, I'm going to read these out for you. You will see that there is also AD. If you choose AD, that's okay. Don't worry. I'll explain to you at the end what that means. All right. So the first statement is, I make important decisions based on gut level feelings, which way sounds the best, what looks best to me, precise review and study of the issues. Pick a statement. Pick the letter that next to the statement that most resonates with you. Don't overthink it either. Just pick first one that appeals to you. Angela, there's going to be 5. So write down the 5. You can keep putting them in the chat if you want to, but keep going. There's going to be 5 of these. All right, next one. During a heated discussion, I'm most likely to be influenced by the other person's tone of voice, whether or not I can see the other person's point of view, the logic of the other person's argument, whether or not I'm in touch with the other person's true feelings. Pick one that resonates with you.
Can we pick 2?
No. All right, next one. I most easily communicate what is going on with me by the way I dress and look, the feelings I share, the words I choose, my tone of voice. Next one. It is easiest for me to find the ideal volume and tuning on a stereo system. I'd say radio now, maybe. Who has stereos these days? Select the most intellectually relevant point in an interesting subject. Select the most comfortable furniture, or select which attractive colour combinations. Which one do you like? All right. Last one. My natural abilities are I'm very attuned to the sounds of my surroundings. I'm very adept at making sense of new facts and data. I'm very sensitive to the way articles of clothing feel on my body. I have a strong response to colours and the way a room looks. That was the last one. So what I want you to do is add up all of the letters and tell me in the chat what your score was. What was your highest score? Some of you might have an equal score, but share with me in the chat what your score was. Kelly was an A, auditory. So Kelly's probably listening to what the webinar. Boardroom is an AD. So AD, what AD means is auditory digital. Ashish, you're auditory, and Rose is 3A and 2AD. So that means, Rose, that you are more auditory. AD is auditory digital. So what that means is that you are a thinker. You basically talk it through in your head. You have to really think it through in terms of, and that's how you like to learn is process it first. So you're Ashish, you're auditory, which is no surprising because you like to talk, open up and talk things through, yeah? Because that's how you process and understand the information. So isn't that interesting? Because a lot of you were auditory. It's really interesting when I'm doing this. It's always unpredictable to see, but you can recognize that people have different learning styles. There's so much more that you can research on this online and look into it. But again, if you want to influence people, you have to take in consideration visual, auditory and kinesthetic. Those people, you're going to have a bigger effect and influence if you can sort of hedge your bets and approach all of those different learning styles. Just mindful of time, so I'm going to just move through some things really quickly to make sure that we cover off on it before we finish. We've only got about 5 minutes to go. I might be a little bit over on this webinar, like 5 minutes, but I just want to make sure I cover off on everything for you. I'm just going to go through quickly a model in terms of communicating with stakeholders. They can sometimes be the most difficult group to influence because we don't have control over those conversations with these people sometimes. So we want to create influence with them. And when we're communicating with these groups, they can either be supportive of our ideas or they can be resistant to them. Yeah. And sometimes in terms of communicating with them, they can be very actively supportive or very actively resistant. And sometimes they can be passive in their support and passive in their resistance. So we're going to go through what it looks like in a combination and what kind of approach you need to take with these people. So hopefully you've drawn a square down on a piece of paper if you've got taking notes, and this is the kind of approach you want to take with these people. So there's not much to say about these guys. If they're actively supporting us, we love them. Right? They're basically saying, yep, what do you need? What help do you want? Got it. Make it happen. Tell me more. I want to know more. What else can I do? So they're very willing to create whatever structures and systems or frameworks are needed and that's necessary for your ideas to work. And they're going to act within the spirit of those frameworks. They get it. They're on side and they're incredibly supportive and very clear about their support. They're very open to change. They're open to taking on ideas. They will invest their time and energy into making whatever needs to happen in order to adopt your ideas. Love these guys. We want to work with them. Then we get people that are actively resistant. Now, you might go, oh gosh, these are a thorn in my side, these guys. But the good news is they're telling you very clearly what it is that they object to. They're making it very clear about why they don't think it'll work, and they're not going to do it. They're going to be a no, they're going to oppose it, they're going to knock back your ideas and tell you why, and they will actively stop the progression of what it is that you're proposing. The key here is that they don't see any benefit. They don't agree with you. They see that the risk is too great. So your challenge with these guys is to demonstrate how you can mitigate the risk and how you can address it. So this is where you really need to ask questions about why they believe there is a risk, what's important to them, what's going to make it work, all of those, because they're telling you very clearly, which is great. So you can dig a little deeper on that. Then we've got the passive support. These guys are dangerous. But I mean, I think either of the passive ones are dangerous, but a passive support is basically where they say, yeah, no worries, that sounds great. But then they don't commit, they don't act, they don't do the thing. Yeah, I'm on board. Yeah. So they will work within a framework, but they'll only do what they can get away with. You know, like if they can get out of it, they will. They won't go above and beyond. They'll stick to the letter of the framework. They're just not going to be creative, stretch themselves, offer up any help or extend themselves. They're probably lacking inspiration and motivation. So you want them to be really, yeah, what do you want? I'll do anything. You want them to be there. So they're probably lacking motivation or overworked and can't release any resource to support you. So they probably will accept what you're proposing. They in terms of changing what they're doing, they're not going to be hostile to it, but they're not going to help it progress. They're not going to be proactive. They're not going to ask for suggestions. So you've got to drag it out of them. What can you commit to? When will that be by the firm decision questions? What ideas have you got? What sort of things can you do from your end to see this happening? So if they're agreeing, you've got to get their commitment to what they're agreeing to and what they're going to do. So they can kind of see the value of it, but yeah, you know, they're nonchalant about it. And then we've got the guys that are passive resistant. This is like passive aggressive, right? We don't know what their problem is, but they have a problem. This is really tricky. So this is where you've got to really ask the questions of, I can suggest to me from your eye rolling that you don't think this is a good idea. Not that you'd use that language, but So it looks to me like you're challenged. Can I ask what it is that you're challenged with by this idea? I feel like there's some objection here. What's your resistance? You've really got to pull out from them what it is that they're objecting to so that you can pull them over to a more active, resistant spot. You need to ask lots of questions to find out where the roadblock is here. What is their problem? So it could be feelings, those feelings questions, concerns, opinions. If we go back to the type of questioning that you're asking, they probably don't see the benefit. So you've got to get that out of them and what they see as the risk and why they don't see there being a benefit. So we've got to get them to communicate their objections clearly. So based on this quadrant and what we're looking at here, is I'm going to give you some ideas of some language that you can use to help shift people into being more active and more supportive or getting clear on where they're at. So here are some strategies you might like to adopt. Here are some of my favorite ones. All right, so we've got for a fixed mindset. No, it's not going to work. Don't see it happening. And they're refusing to open their mind. Try this one. It's a formula. I like, I wonder. And it's often used by design thinkers. So you start with 2 things you like about any ideas that they've put forward to you or that they've presented or any opinions. I like X and I like Y. Then you use, I wonder if, or I wonder whether, I'm curious about. You use that kind of curiosity questioning. So you could, an example would be, I like your idea about including last year's sales report, and I like how you compared it to our performance to local market standards. I wonder whether we could also include market forecast, which would help us get more buy-in. That's a very pragmatic example, but it's an example of where you're using, I like, what about this? And so it will help move someone in a fixed mindset and take on board other options. It's one to try. All right, the next one is when someone is objecting to someone. This is a classic sales technique. But it works. It really, really works. I love this one. It's an easy one to remember in the moment. Feel, felt, found. An oldie but a goodie. And it uses story and it uses things like the word feel, for example, is putting things into a current context. So let's say, for example, someone says to you, look, we'd like to try the software that you've suggested that we bring into our business, but it's not a high priority for us right now. We've just got so much other stuff going on, can't possibly change software. Rosie, this one's for you. Yeah, I love it. Sounds like a great idea, but we're just so busy to take on any of this new stuff. So how you would apply this is you would use the feel, felt, found. Oh, I understand how you feel. When I spoke with someone from XY Allied Services, so it could be a similar company or someone that relates to them, they felt the same way for a long time. Then after they started using the software, they immediately stopped having processing errors and returns on their goods. Plus, the admin found that they had much more time. The time saving they quickly achieved far outweighed the time and inconvenience it took from the transaction. So that's the transition. So that's an example where I'm using feel, felt, found. Oh gosh, I know how you feel. Another company felt the same way. What they found when they did it was this, this, and this. Now, the reason it works is because it builds empathy. And you're also providing social proof. Don't trust me. Somebody else has had the same experience. And their thoughts are common. They felt the same way as you. They're just like you. You're not alone. There's a group of people that are just like you. And so when they can start to feel like they're part of a group, then they start to share in the group's success. They align with that group, that other person that's just like them, and they're motivated by their success. Oh, I want to be like, if they've had a win, I want to be like them and have a win. And so what you're doing is meeting people where they're at. Yep, I know how you feel. Know how you feel. I'm with you there. That's the now. The felt is in the past. These people, they were in the past like you, they felt like that, but this is them in the future by adopting this thing, by taking it on board. And so what you're doing is you're allowing the person you're talking to put themselves in the shoes of the person you're talking about in the past, and what it would look like for them in the present if they too adopted this idea or took on board what you're doing. It's a very, very clever psychological technique that helps move people through a process. Yeah. And it's an easy one to remember in the moment. Feel, felt, found. Love it. It's an alliteration. This one I mentioned to you before, very, very powerful in terms of when someone is very angry. When they're really, really angry, and the influence that you want to create is to bring them back down, or if they're really objecting to something, no, it's not going to work, not going to do it. So you're basically asking what's going to make it right. What would you like to see happen? What will work for you? What can you live with? Is what I say in mediation. Great question to ask, so it tells you where they're at. I love this one when I was working for an entrepreneur and I had people that were really angry and really upset. And when I asked them, what would you like to see happen? 9 times out of 10, they just said, I want the owner of this business to know I'm not happy. And so I would say to them, if I can get them, if you write me an email with the dot points of what you're not happy about, and I get them to respond to that email, would that work for you? Yes, I would like to see that. So that can be all it takes to bring someone down from hysteria of anger that they're experiencing with something. So if you're wanting to influence the emotion of someone, this is a really powerful question to ask. So some more books that you might find useful are my favorite ones. Start with Why. Is by Simon Sinek. Love this book, made a huge difference. And this one, it's an oldie but a goodie. How to Win Friends and Influence People. A lot of business people often refer back to this book. It's over nearly 100 years old, but boy, does it have some classic words of wisdom around human nature. I used to poo-poo this book because it's like, oh, some old man wrote it 100 years ago, whatever. But wow, when I read it, there were some really, really strong lessons in communication and leadership in that book. It's a really powerful book. So just quickly, just to finish up, we're a little bit over, so I just want to get through this quickly. I will stay on board for anyone who wants to stay on longer to ask me any questions about some of that stuff I've rushed through. If you've got your pen ready, here are some things you can do, some further learning and some further development. This will be in the email that I send out afterwards as well. There's a scorecard you can take. It's so talking about that wheel at the very beginning of the webinar around all of those qualities. This scorecard will test you against some key principles. So not necessarily time, stress, and well-being, but things like adaptability, clarity. It'll actually rate you against some of those principles, fundamental principles of leadership, and give you a report card. It's free, so you can take that one if you want to. It's a really fun and interesting process. You also have the opportunity to book in a strategy session with me. I have smashed you with information in 2 hours. If you want to talk through any of this with me, if you want to know how it can practically apply to you, there's my mobile number. Send me a text message and say, yep, Barbara, I want to book in a session with you. It will also be in the email. It is free. And I will give you a strategy of what you can do to move forward in terms of your learning and development. I do have some more training coming up. So these are half-day workshops. They are delivered online. I think the early bird tickets are still available for these. The early bird ticket's $90. The full price is $150. Now, I'd normally charge up to $450 or more for a half-day workshop in person. So this is really affordable. I think these are the last 2 workshops that I've got running for the year. I may or may not have some more. So if you want to join in on workshop training, it's half a day where we go through a lot more behavioural stuff. So you can managing your own behaviour or working with the behaviour of others. These are some great workshops that you can do to extend your learning. We'll probably cover some of the stuff we've covered today, or spend more time expanding on it, because obviously I had to cram in a lot. There is also some self-directed learning that you can find on the website. We're always developing more. So this is basically you work at your own pace and go through the learning if you want to do some of that. And we are going to be doing more and more stuff in this resilient space. So I am going to be launching some challenges down the track, which is really exciting, completely free, but you're going to be given homework every day to complete some fundamental learning. And we're going to be focusing on these elements. So stay tuned on that. And of course, we're going to be offering a really intensive coaching and learning program with lots of other people later in the year, probably next year at this stage, where it'll be extensive, intense learning and learning with other people around those key areas. So really digging deep on a lot of that stuff. So your challenge is to write down, based on what we've covered today, some things you're going to stop, what you're going to change, and what you're going to continue doing. You can also, I'm also sharing stuff in this space all the time online, little nuggets of knowledge, learning, lessons, resources, tools, scorecards through social media. So there's some Facebook groups you can join. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm also on TikTok. I do a video a day on TikTok about a key learning in this area, some little nuggets, 2-minute videos of stuff you can learn. So you can always find me through social media as well. Alrighty, so does anybody, thank you for hanging out with me for 2 hours. I'm sorry I kept you a little bit over. Does anybody have any questions, particularly through some of that stuff that I rushed through towards the end? If you do need to go, I totally understand, but I'm going to hang around for a little bit longer. No worries, Angela, I will send you through those things that you requested. And does anybody have any questions or any closing thoughts or comments on what we've covered today? I would love to hear. Great, Angela, she's going to look at my website. Awesome. I'm glad it was helpful, Ashish. Does anyone want to share what's one, thanks, Rosie. Does anyone want to share what's one key thing you're going to take away from what we've covered today? What's one thing you might have learned or something you're going to refocus on that you already knew, improve upon? Does anyone want to share? You can open up your mic or you can pop in the chat. Love to hear. Yeah, Rose, you're more than welcome to forward it to your work colleagues. As I said, I will do the recording. I have the recording up on YouTube so that you can share it with others. I'll send out an email with a link to that. So you're more than welcome, Rose, if they'll sit through it. It's not the same watching a recording, is it, as being on a live? But yeah, you're more than welcome. Tell them it's the best feature movie they'll have ever watched. 2-hour movie. All right. If there's no other questions or any other comments, I'm going to sign off here. But I'd love to, you're more than welcome to connect with me, as I said, through social media or online. Yeah, I feel everyone would benefit too, Rose. Yeah, you can put forward a persuasive argument. Let's see if they actually watch it to the very end, Rose, and they see this bit where you're saying they'll all benefit from it, hey? That'll be the test. Thank you, everybody, for giving up 2 hours of your time to hang out with me. I always learn something from people commenting and from your participation. If there's anything else that you need from me, please don't hesitate to send me an email and I'll send out all of those things that you've requested. Enjoy the rest of your day or your evening, wherever you are. Angela, you should have a lovely day going forward now. Hey, what time is it there now?
Oh, it's 7 o'clock, but thank you very, very much. I'm really going to follow a lot of courses at your institution.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Angela. And please reach out if you've got any questions around any of it as well.
I will. Thank you. Thank you.
Enjoy your day. Bye, everyone.